Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everybody, and anybody else who wants to come on over. I'm Nic Harcourt. Please welcome Kenny Holland. Yeah, me too. You're great.
Thank you.
So we're going to have a conversation for the next 30, 40 minutes. If you have any questions at the end, we'll take a few questions. Kenny's got a very interesting career path so far, which we're going to dig into a little bit. But before we get into the guts of it, let's talk a little bit about your background and growing up. And I said to you before we came out here that I was looking on the web and doing a little research, which is always a good thing to do before an interview.
I would say.
And there were competing stories out there, whether you were born in Phoenix and raised in Michigan, or born in Michigan and raised in Phoenix. But you were born in Michigan, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's
I
right.
got that right. How long did you live there, and where in Michigan?
So I was born in Holland, Michigan, which is how I got my stage name. It's not my real last name.
That's not your real name?
Surprise,
Right.
And yeah, I was there for about actually, I don't even know, like maybe a year before.
Oh, so you don't remember it?
No, it was really young.
Okay.
I just,
Okay.
And yeah, it's funny. I don't understand how these online, resources or whatever. Apparently, with Nick's research, he was telling me that most of the online resources have the wrong information about where I was born and where I grew up. And so yeah, I was born in Michigan and raised in Arizona. But it's interesting that the internet can paint an entirely false, growing up background story for you.
Yeah. If anybody wants to write a bio, you should be taking notes now, and then you can put the bio up there.
Exactly. Coming soon.
So growing up in Phoenix then?
Right. Yeah.
Right. What kind of kid were you? What was going on?
I was telling you a little bit. I come from a fairly conservative background, and it was just. And I have a big family. I have 5 sisters.
Wow.
Yeah, I got 5. No brothers.
Where are you in that group of 6? Where do you fit?
I'm second oldest.
Second oldest.
Yeah.
So 1 older sister and 4 younger sisters.
That's right.
All right. Before we talk about music. What is that like, growing up in a house full of women? I mean, it's got to be cool, but at the same time, I mean, you're the only male.
Yeah. Major pros and cons, and luckily my dad was there, so he kind of balanced out.
So there was a little bit of testosterone in
exactly.
the house. But growing up with all these girls.
Yeah, pros and cons, man. You learn things that would benefit you. You learn things that you do want to know and that you don't want to know, in a different way. But the one beautiful thing is my whole family is musical, and all of my sisters sing. So
Wow.
I grew up in a family we were just singing all the time. We're in the car, we're singing songs, we're harmonizing, blending like a Vitamix, man.
So what's the age range?
So my older sister is 25. My youngest sister is 13.
So you said you were growing up around music. Were your
Right.
parents players or singers?
Yep, my mom is a wonderfully talented pianist and singer, and my dad grew up playing in some bands and stuff. They never made a career out of it or anything, but yeah, we grew up going to church and stuff and singing in church and all that good stuff, and so yeah, it was just always around.
So when did you start playing piano?
When I was 8 years old, I started taking lessons.
Now, is that something you wanted to do?
It was forced upon me.
Yeah. So what was your initial reaction when they're like, "You're going to take piano lessons"?
You know what? Actually, I take that back. At first, I was really excited about it. For the first year, I thought it was all cool and stuff, And then like the 2 years after that, it was just excruciatingly painful, and I hated every minute of it.
Why?
Because I grew up playing sports too. I played basketball and football, and so to leave football practice to go to piano practice was social suicide.
I was going to say, so there was a point where it just wasn't cool.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And luckily, my mom very intensely made me stick through it, and I took lessons till I was about 14, and I'm so grateful that she did that.
When did you start playing in front of people, apart from all the girls?
Yeah. Right then, at age 14, when I stopped taking lessons, I, for whatever reason, assumed that I was good enough to start playing in front of people, and yeah, my first gigs when I was 14 were playing for tips with my piano at the local frozen yogurt shop in Arizona, and it was great, man. Every weekend, just
Free yogurt.
free yogurt. You know, you get $50 from tips, and as a freshman in high school, you're living the dream. That's it.
Were you singing as well at that time?
Yeah.
Okay, so were you playing other people's music, or were you already writing your own?
At that point, I was not writing my own music, so I was just doing covers and stuff.
So what were you listening to, and what were you covering? What was the music that was inspiring you?
You know, John Mayer has always been kind of my favorite artist and that I've looked up to.
Can you tell me why?
Because of his diverse nature, he can shred the guitar, he can sing pretty brilliantly, but more importantly than all that, his songwriting has always just absolutely struck a chord with me.
Right.
And being a solo artist on the piano, I've always looked up to another solo artist on the guitar. You know.
Sure. So John Mayer. Who else?
John Mayer, different bands like Parachute. You know, that piano kind of influence. And I grew up just loving the pop punk scene. So all those All Time Lows, Mayday Parades, and all those guys. You know.
Now, where were you hearing this? Were you listening to it on the radio? Was it in the house? How were you discovering it?
Older sister's iPod. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I didn't really know how to discover music at that point, so I just kind of listened to what I heard and just liked what I liked, and that's kind of how I stumbled upon that stuff.
So talking of stumbling, if I stumbled into the Froyo place,
Yeah.
and you were there for a set,
Uh-huh.
what would I hear?
You might hear some Jason Mraz. You know, you might hear some Secondhand Serenade. A little bit of John Mayer. You know, generally, I feel like one of my biggest strengths is taking any type of song and applying it to the piano. So
I was going to ask you, because all these people you're talking about are guitar players.
Right.
So what's that process? Oh, I love this song and I want to play it on piano. How do you do that?
I guess just whatever I kind of feel, whatever song kind of moves me, and I feel like it's always interesting to apply that to a piano setting, because it's always very intimate with the piano, and so I like to break it down and bust out the John Mayer tone and just kind of, you know, do my thing. So
playing in the Froyo place,
yeah.
You progress from there to playing at a high school, I guess, right? You played at school
Exactly.
events and stuff like that?
School events. My buddy Patch, who's in the convention center somewhere, played drums in high school, so we had a little band going on by age like 15, and yeah, we're doing school events, just playing whatever, you know, stupid shows we could find and stuff. It's awesome.
So let me ask you this. You're obviously good. You're playing piano, you're singing, you're in high school, you're a good-looking guy. There's got to be a part of that that's a lot of fun because you're getting some attention, right?
Oh man, so fun, dude, so fun.
Okay.
And right then is when Justin Bieber is hot on the scene. You know what I mean? So I'm looking up to Justin Bieber like, man, this guy, we're about the same age, and if there's someone doing this type of thing, you know, like singing and people are reacting so positively to it, like I can just do that too. And so yeah, I would sing a Justin Bieber song here and there, you know, just make my piano version of it and sing it at the high school. And I mean, everybody knows the Justin Bieber experience, especially at that time when he was so young. Like it was just a wave of just he had that magnetic thing going on. It was crazy. So I kind of followed suit there, you know.
So you're looking at me and I'm horrified. Because I'm thinking.
That's fair, you know.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with Justin Bieber, but I'm thinking like, I'm thinking of like the influences that I had, like, you know, growing up and listening to the Beatles and like, and you're saying, but this was working for you, clearly.
It was working, so you follow, you know, it works, you roll with it.
Yeah,
you know?
it's what you're exposed to, and
Right.
that's what influences you.
Exactly.
The thing about Bieber, which I think was something that you really were inspired by, was the fact that he was putting up these covers, right?
Not necessarily. I really just saw someone with my same age and honestly, I was like kind of a late bloomer type, same thing. So I had a high voice all the way up till like junior year of high school. And so I could just rip those high notes that he was singing too. And I was like, man, if someone's doing this same thing, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this too. I can do it too.
So when did you decide that this was your passion? This is what you wanted to do with your life?
Right around that time when I started playing froyo shops and just around for which I plan to get back to someday. You know, that was one of the better times. Yeah, 14, 15, those early years of high school. I was like, this is being up on stage and just like getting that reaction and just, you know, letting that passion out. Ooh, it was addictive, man.
So obviously you're deciding, well, I like this. I like the way this feels. I want to get out there and do this in front of bigger audiences than high school and froyo.
Right.
When did you decide that social media was a platform for you to put yourself out into the bigger world?
Really not until later, honestly, because around that time I started working with some people in Arizona who helped me, kind of mentored me in the small local music scene there in Arizona, helped me start writing music when I was about 16, and that's when I released like my first single, and I released an album when I was 17, and you know, that was a high in high school that was just unparalleled for me. You know, to be able to release music in high school, I was just floating on top of the world. It was so amazing.
How were you releasing it?
We were just doing it all by ourselves. You know, I had a producer and a manager at the time, just a small local group who was helping me out, and yeah, they put my tracks together. We wrote 10 songs. We released them, and you know, I was building just a small local following in Arizona. And all along the while, we're seeing the Justin Biebers and the Ryan Beatties and these other kids kind of coming up on YouTube. And so we just kind of roped that into the whole plan. Like, hey, let's put these covers up too. It was never as much of a focus until later. You know, at first it was really just about the grind, just playing shows and writing music in the studio, and it was a blast.
So tell us about Vine.
Right. So around my senior year of high school is when that group that I was working with basically said, like, for, you know, whatever reason, they said that they wouldn't be able to work with me anymore. And I basically had two options at that point. I could have said, all right, well, there goes my chance at a career, or I'm going to do this anyway. And that was when I started saying, okay, well, what's the only option I have now is to keep the fans that I have engaged by putting stuff out on social media. And, you know, after graduating high school is when Vine started kind of popping. And Sean, I really saw Shawn Mendes on there. Really just same thing as that whole kind of, you know, JB thing. I saw him being successful, singing songs for less than 10 seconds, and I was like, this can't be too hard, and I'm going to try that, and I did that, and it just started to work.
So what was the limit? Was it 10 seconds? It was less. 6 seconds,
it was 6.5,
right?
yeah.
6.5 seconds.
Yeah.
So what can you do in 6.5 seconds, putting a cover up?
Just show off as much as possible in that amount of time, the way I saw it. And
so give me an example. If you're covering a song that you put up there, think of one of the first ones that you put up there. How much of the song, what was the song? And how much of it would, you know, what part of the song would you put up?
We'll say Just the Girl by the Click 5 was one of the first ones that really kind of took off for me. And it was just that chorus, you know, she's bittersweet, with that falsetto thing. And I always reacted to runs, you know, vocally and falsettos, and I always looked up to that. So I just figured, I'm sure other people will be impressed in 6 seconds if I can do one of those cool little vocal techniques, you know.
Now I never got on Vine, and it really wasn't around that long. It sort of went away.
Yeah.
But I was just catching up, and it's gone. No.
Yeah.
But how did that work from the point of view of people discovering you through Vine?
So yeah, like I said, I was about 18, and I had created a small fan base just in the local scene of Arizona, and just, you know, consistently I had been posting an Instagram photo every single day for about 3 years at that point.
So you were tying these in together, like were you directing people from the Instagram to the Vine?
And vice versa.
And vice versa, right.
yes. And I would respond to every tweet that came in for about 2 years after school. Spend 4 hours responding to everybody.
So you're doing Twitter,
Yep.
Instagram, and Vine,
Yep.
linking them all together,
Exactly.
and very smartly responding to everybody.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And over a period of, how long was it? You accumulated millions of followers and views.
I think about 8 months from when I started singing, like posting covers on Vine, is when I had 1 million followers.
Wow. What are you thinking when you're seeing that it's succeeding?
It was a serious, intoxicating rush, man. Like, you know, to see people, you know, working 3 or 4 years just putting out music, playing shows and all this stuff, and then to see people start to really react to it, you are feeling really cool at that point, you know, and that was just like a dream that I had never even imagined, to see that many people reacting to what I love, you know.
When you get that kind of feedback from people, my guess is that, and we'll dig into this a little later, but just touching on it now, my guess is that you get really nice feedback, and probably every now there's haters out there
Sure.
in the world.
Sure.
If you're answering everything and reading everything, first of all, how much time do you spend doing that? And secondly, what's your head doing when you're seeing really lovely things and then maybe every now and then something that's not nice?
Interestingly enough, I kind of stopped the whole responding strategy right before Vine came along. And so I wasn't going through all my comments, seeing I would see a thing here and there, but I wasn't as engaged at that time. So I really wasn't seeing too much good or bad going on. I was just seeing the likes and followers kind of go up and up and up and just kind of follow that train.
You talked about the fact that you've been playing out for a couple of years and then obviously building a following locally, but then all of a sudden you've got a global following.
Yeah.
What kind of number does that do on your head? Because, you know, people play clubs, they play bars, they try and build a following, and then all of a sudden we have this medium now that can deliver you into homes around the globe.
Right.
And create such a huge audience.
Yeah. You know, I don't think I realized it at the time, but it was a serious kind of intoxication, you know, to see, and validation to see all these people really positively reacting. And it was really surreal, man.
Was there a moment there when you thought, okay, now I have to do my own music. I've got this attention. There's a ton of people following me. Now I need to convert this into something that is mine.
Interestingly enough, I didn't really take that approach because of that intoxication. Like, I'm seeing all these likes and followers come up and up and up, and my focus sort of started to shift naturally from I'm a musician, a singer-songwriter, putting out my own original, you know, content and music, to how do I keep growing this number and how do I keep this just building as high as I can get it.
So all of a sudden you're on a mouse wheel.
Exactly.
And you're running around and you're like, I got to find another cover. I got to do something else. Tell me about that. What's that like when you're like, every day I've got to deliver another piece of content?
You know, I didn't really interpret it like that at that time. I just kind of did what felt natural, and you know, if I heard a song that I like, mind you, I wasn't really into the whole YouTube space at this time, and so, you know, these people who are doing vlogs a day and all that type of stuff, I didn't really feel that pressure at the time. I just knew I had to get a weekly 6-second cover up, and it would keep growing. And but I you know, looking back, I do see the noticeable shift from, okay, I'm a musician who wants to bring people positivity, to I am a musician, but, you know, there's all these likes and followers that are kind of flying in that I need to cater to, you know.
So you're a social media celebrity, perhaps more than a musician at that point, at least from the outside.
Exactly.
So how long was Vine around?
It had a 2-year run, and then it died.
So were you just continuing to do what you were doing until it went away, or where did you take this? When did you sort of decide to break out of Vine?
Well, so I had a few opportunities to go on tour, and through the social kind of explosion, a bunch of opportunities came for me to literally tour the country for the first time ever.
You were touring opening for people, right, as well?
Yes, but it was more of a social media group of influencers touring.
So tell us about that. What kind of tour was that then? Was that somebody outside grouping a bunch of people together? Or?
Yeah, it was. And all of us were musicians, which is cool. We were all, while we were influencers on Vine and social media, we all were kind of had a musical direction, So yeah, we were playing music out every night for, months at a time on a tour bus, and at age 19, that was pretty darn sick.
Were you getting paid?
Yeah.
Were you getting paid to tour, getting paid to play? Were you getting paid to say things on social media as an influencer?
Yeah, paid to tour, and then, a lot of different endorsements and products that, you kind of team up with and connect with you to just market their stuff,
So you're making some dough.
Making some dough.
And how is that at 19?
You like that at 19?
Sure.
At 19, that's cool.
Right, but are you putting in the bank, or are you reinvesting it in your career, or are you like buying Ferraris?
Unfortunately, I didn't have the business mindset that I wish I did at that time, while all that stuff was really happening.
Should have stayed in school.
I know.
No, I'm kidding.
I know. I couldn't do it though.
But you didn't have the business mind, and you told me before we came out, we were talking a little bit about this, and you've been through a couple of management situations, right? Where sort of people have come in and then sort of gone away, and we'll get to what you're doing a little bit later on, but you've got this money coming in, you've got some fame, you've got some celebrity status, you're on tour, a lot of people want your time, I'm sure. Did you hit a place or a time where that's just like starting to feel weird?
Honestly, yeah. And it was when I started to realize that I had been catering my my brand to all the social media, to all the people following me, as opposed to staying true to what I feel like I am as a musician. That's when I had that realization of like, oh no, I probably should have handled this a little bit smoother. That's when everything kind of flipped for me, but it did get kind of weird at that time, going public and I interpreted this in a sort of negative way at the time, but people would say, hey, you're that kid from Vine. It was never, hey, I love your singing or you're a musician. And so that started to take a toll on me a little bit,
Well, especially in, with all due respect, you're still young, right?
Yeah.
Which is nice for you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this stuff is going down when you're 20 years old. You don't really have the skills or the maturity.
Exactly.
Just because of the fact you've only been on the planet a certain amount of time to be able to deal with that kind of crap.
Right.
So once you started to realize that, what did you need to do?
Well, I thought I needed to completely kind of turn my back on social media and be a musician, the musician that I always wanted to be, and the musician that I know that I am.
When was this? What year is this?
This is about 2016.
Okay, so I'm jumping over a little bit. We should jump back and talk about another project that you did in 2015.
That's right.
When you hooked up with Wesley Stromberg.
That's right.
And you guys formed a project, Balcony, right?
Yep, the Balcony.
So tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll sort of come back to 2016. So 2015, you guys meet?
Yeah, we meet on some of these tours because Wes, he was on X Factor, and so he kind of was on the early side of all this social media type of reality TV fame and all this kind of stuff, and so he was invited on some of those tours, and so that's how we connected. And then in 2015, when I moved out to LA, we just became real tight, and we had a musical chemistry that I had never experienced ever before.
What does he play? What's his?
He's guitar and vocals.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys started writing? We
started writing, and the minute we started writing, we were like, we need to do something. He had recently kind of got out of his previous band, Emblem 3, and we were like, we gotta make a project out of this. It was so fun. It was so fun to experience that that chemistry musically. I'd never
So you guys hold up, or you hold up in Woodland Hills.
Yeah, on the balcony in Woodland Hills. That's where we were.
I love it.
Yeah.
Which is where I live.
Yeah.
And this collaboration. How many songs did you record? You put out an EP, right?
We ended up only releasing a single. We had an EP written to release.
Right.
But yeah, we put out one song called Fire, and it was a blast. That was the time when I felt like that was my opportunity. That band project was my opportunity to re-establish myself as a serious musician.
Right.
And that's when I started to kind of turn my back on the social media aspect of my career.
But as you turned your back on that, you're living in Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
and as you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, you come from a little bit of a conservative background.
Yeah.
Los Angeles is not known for being conservative.
Right.
Maybe down here a little bit, but right up there, not so much.
Right.
You've got some celebrity status.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that there are a lot of people wanting to be your friend.
Yeah. It was a interesting time to kind of experience that all in one wave, you know. The age I'm at, moving out to LA, and yeah, I feel like I really kind of like learned some lessons that were.
So what
kinda
happened?
tough.
I mean, you can dig in as deep as you want, but I know that you crashed.
In a way, that was my first kind of experience outside of the conservative background that I grew up in. And I was living out in LA on my own. I was doing my own thing, and no one's telling me what to do because I got my own successes and my
Got
own.
some money in the bank.
Exactly.
Got a place to live.
I'm doing my thing. No one can tell me what to do. I'm living in LA. It's fun, but that can come with a lot of pressure and a lot of toxicity if you're not careful. And that was kind of my experience at the time.
So what happened at the end of that? Without going into details, but what happened? When did you sort of hit that wall and realize you needed to change things up?
It wasn't until quite a bit later, actually. The band project had finished at this point, and
Balcony.
Yep.
Right.
Balcony, and I was.
Why did that finish?
It just got to a point where I believe it was kind of I'll speak for myself, in this, but an ego type of thing. Here's two kids from separate backgrounds came up on their own way, and then tried to start a project together. And young, living out in LA, it just didn't really blend, or we didn't take it take it as seriously as we probably should have.
Fair enough. So time to sort of part ways.
Time to part ways.
And
then at this point, I am like, okay, this band project was my reestablishment into the music industry as an artist, and now I don't have that. And I have been turning my back on social media for all this time. Now what? I didn't feel like I could just hop back into social media willy-nilly, even though I tried, and kind of failed, I believe,
So when you say you tried, what did you do? YouTube by now, I guess, right?
Yep.
Vine's gone away.
Vine's away. That's the other thing. I was like, I don't have Vine anymore. I don't have
So
my
you
band
lost those
project.
couple of million people.
Yeah. And luckily, I did do a good job of converting them over to my other platforms. So I did have a pretty strong, group following me.
So they were still there, even though you weren't really active for a while.
Yeah, they were.
So once you
shout out to all of them, man. They're so bomb.
So once you decided to try and plug back into that, what did you do?
I don't feel like I was in a place at that age and level of maturity to really be able to express who I genuinely was. And so I think social media is all about authenticity and being your real self, and that's really what people connect to. And that's how I got successful on social media, was just being myself, being a goofy kid like on the third story of my apartment complex singing on the piano, And when I started to take it too seriously, I was out in LA, I felt like I had all this pressure to be this musician or this thing that I probably really wasn't. I just approached the social media comeback the total wrong way. I was just, yeah.
How? I mean, tell me what I should avoid when I'm trying to launch my social media career.
Simple. Like I said, just be yourself. And at that time, I don't know if I knew who I was as a musician, as an artist, or as a person. And as I tried to present what I thought I was, it just wasn't working,
Okay, so you're in LA. the lifestyle is, burning you out.
Yeah.
The band thing hasn't worked out.
Right.
You try to reestablish yourself on social media and went about that in a way that you wish you'd probably done differently.
Sure.
I'm guessing at that moment you're probably hitting a point in your life, and as a young guy, where you're like, well, how am I gonna do this? Who am I?
Yeah.
How do you find that? How do you connect to, you're talking about, the authenticity of who you are that you felt you had at the beginning and you lost as you were sort of like lost in the circus, so to
Yep,
speak.
exactly.
How did you get in touch with what you needed to do to, rebuild from that and start writing songs again that you were proud of?
Right. I guess this is a journey that is always ongoing to discover yourself and to be who you are. I'm still on that journey. Believe I always will be, but I do believe I have tapped into a more authentic version of myself than I was at that time. And you ask how I did that. I don't know, man. It's been a grind, honestly. It's been a lot of soul searching and looking myself in the mirror, being like, yo, who are you, and what do you really want, and what have you acted like you've wanted, and just being real with yourself, getting straight up with yourself, and figuring out what it is you need to change in order to be who you are and who you want to be.
You talk about acting. I mean, you actually got into acting for a minute there as well, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Tell us about that, and is that something you want to do more of, or is that something that just sort of came into your realm and you played around with it for a while?
Yeah, no, I would love to do more acting if the opportunity kind of presented itself. I had a great time. Yeah, I had the opportunity to be the lead role of an independent feature film, and it was really cool.
It's called Saturday's Warrior.
That's right.
Where did you shoot that?
In Utah.
Oh, in Utah.
In Utah.
And it was out there doing the festival circuit, right? The movie.
Yes. It was actually in theaters all over Utah.
Okay. So maybe again, but really, it seems to me like when you moved out of LA, that's when you started to sort of find yourself again. Did you move home?
I did. I moved back to Arizona and tried to kind of just find my footing and reestablish who I am and where I want to be.
Do you think the fact that you were away from home and without those people, your family, obviously, and the people that you grew up with,
right?
Do you feel that was part of sort of getting lost?
I'm sure that was part of it, but I was also at this point, real grateful for that, because it was just me, and it was just me having to face all these demons and fight all these battles, without the comfort and support of my family. And when I moved back, they were still there, and they're always there to support. So it all worked out kind of well.
All right, so let's move on from that. I mean, I find it fascinating that at 23, you've already sort of had 2 careers almost, and then you sort of like gone back home and decided to figure out who you are, and now you're coming out again.
Yeah.
So tell us what you've been up to in the last couple of years and what's going on now.
For sure, yeah. That same whole, path of discovery as an artist, as a human being.
What does that mean to you, though, when you say that path of discovery? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. I feel like we all kind of we're born with a direction. We're come into this existence with parents and a family who kind of guide us to who they feel like we are or need to be, and that might be exactly who we are, but it might not. And I've just had to really kind of look at myself and understand who I want to be versus who I've always been told that I should be.
That's a really important distinction, obviously, because if we grow up and we're told we're a certain person, and then we go out into the world and find out the world is very different from that little home base that we sort of grow up in, and it's so much bigger.
Yeah.
Finding yourself after that is a bit of a trick.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So tell us. Obviously, you seem pretty centered now.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
No, you seem really good.
I would like to think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about what's going on with you working right now and writing, because I know you've been writing songs and recording songs. First of all, what's your process when? I'm sure it's changed a little bit. What's your process now when you write a song?
Yeah. It's just me and my piano. My sidekick is the piano, and I'll just sit at the piano and just wait till I hear something cool, and then I'll just sing a little melody on top of that. I'll just mumble it out, and eventually words will kind of fall into the equation. I grew up loving English class and everything, so poetry and all that stuff I'm a really big fan of, and it always piqued my interest. And so I'd like to think I'm a bit of a wordsmith and can kind of shape concepts into a cool way in song form, and so it really just starts with sitting at the piano for me.
What do you write about? What do you sing about? Where do your lyrics come from?
The initial projects I was writing about was girls.
Sure.
Yes, as a high school kid, it was about girls. At this point, you know, as you can maybe gather from our conversation here, it's just more. I feel like there's more depth to what I have to say and what I feel now, and so I really try to explore the deep corners of my mind and you know, Earth and this life that we have, and just share my perspectives on what that is, and so it's more of a reflective process than a crush process at this point in a songwriting fashion.
Do you have a home studio?
I do, yeah.
What kind of setup do you have at home?
I have my keyboard, Yamaha keyboard that my dad got me when I was 14. Same one I played at the Ogre Shops, you know, keeping it true. And JBL invited me out to this experience here, and I'm super grateful for that. So they've hooked me up with gear along
They
the
might
way.
have given you some speakers.
They got me some speakers, you know, that's their forte. So
Yeah.
I got some of their stuff set up there, but if I have my piano and a USB to my laptop, I am good to go.
And and what software do you use to record on?
I use Logic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is that something you taught yourself?
I did. I grew up like learning GarageBand, just like in elementary school. They kind of
Sure.
taught that growing up, and so it was a pretty easy transition to kind of just with the people I've worked with over my time. And Wes actually really influenced me in that way, showed me a lot about that stuff, and so I've developed myself a little bit in that way.
Now, interestingly enough, as we've been talking, you might have gathered that Kenny's pretty self-sufficient from the point of view of making music, recording it, and putting it out. And I know that you don't have any management people right now. You don't. It's all you.
It is.
And you are back into social media a little bit, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us what the plan is now as a guy who is really running your own business as well as writing and recording songs.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of all the same conversation. Just like my goal is to just be authentic with social media. I dove headfirst into the social media industry, and then I kind of turned my back on it as I realized who I wanted to be as a musician. And I just feel like I'm finding that happy medium of using my craft and my passion to the beauty and or necessary evil that social media is, and just trying to spread some goodness and some positivity and hope to people through what I love.
So you have some songs ready that you're going to release?
Yes, that is the plan, yeah.
So what, are you going to put out an EP or are you going to put out a series of singles?
My plan is to really start releasing more content. I've been kind of in the dark in that way for quite a while, and even though that's been the case, luckily, like I don't even know how this is possible, but the fan base that I do have has really stuck by me, you know, through all this time of what I feel like has been a lot of self-discovery. And so gratefully I have a base of people who are hopefully looking forward to what I have to say, and I'll be putting out a lot more content over the next few months and throughout 2019, and then be sprinkling my original music in the mix.
Got it.
Yeah.
I do have some more questions, and I'll probably get to them, but I figured we got about 15, 20 minutes left. We might start throwing it out. If anybody has any questions and you would like to put your hand up, we got a microphone. If you feel like introducing yourself, that'd be nice. And if you've got any questions, put your hand up.
No pressure. Don't be shy.
Yeah, no pressure at all. There you go.
Hello.
Let's see if we can turn it on.
I'm Janice, and so I'm also a singer, and I'm just wondering how you contain your nervousness.
Say it one more time.
How do you help contain your nervousness when you perform?
Good question. Well, the first time that I ever performed when I was 14 at my high school, I did terribly because I was so nervous. My voice was so shaky. I could not contain my adrenaline. But after years of just playing over and over and over, just like anything, right? Like perfect practice makes perfect. Those fears and those nerves just kind of went away. So my advice in that space is to just practice and do it as much as you can until you get to the point where you don't even feel that anymore, and you're just up there having the time of your life. You know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
When did you get over being nervous? How long did that take?
I would say I still get nervous, but now it's the good kind of nervous. So it's always there, but you can use it to your advantage at a certain point. And now I'm just like, oh, I'm so pumped. I get amped to get up there and play, and it's this adrenaline rush. But it was probably about a year into performing that I didn't experience that level of like paralyzing fright.
Wanting to throw up
Exactly.
before you went out.
Right.
Do you remember the moment? Do you remember a moment where you're like, oh wow, I don't have that feeling anymore?
I don't know if I remember a specific moment, but I do know that now. Oh, you know, that's my safe place now. It's like I have more anxiety outside of that space than I do sitting on stage with my piano. You know, so.
I know a lot of people are really scared of public speaking, right?
Yeah.
Like kids when you're at school and sometimes you have to go up and you have to say something, you have to talk. A lot of people are really nervous about public speaking. And what I've found from what I do, which is, you know, doing it on the radio sometimes, on TV sometimes hanging out with somebody like you, is I'm always nervous. A little bit.
Right, right.
You kind of have to be.
Yeah.
So what is that for you? Like if you're going out to do something, you said it's the good nervous. What does that mean?
It's the excited nervous. It's the good butterflies that help you instead of, you know, hurt you in that setting.
Right.
You know?
All right. Any other questions? Over here.
My name's Jonathan. I'm curious as a social media personality, what do you do? How do you cultivate your style? And I'm talking more about appearance and look and fashion. And how do you stay ahead of those trends? What do you do to do that?
I think my answer kind of is the same in all of those types of questions, which is just be kind of like, do what I do, you know, do my thing. And I think people respond to that far more than like keeping up with the latest trend or whatever, which I'm terrible at doing anyway. So it kind of, you know, it's a benefit in that way. But yeah, I think just keeping it as real as possible for me, at least, you know. So thanks, man.
Do you think about what you wear? Do you think about artwork? Do you think about sort of having a package that is representative of you, the way you look when you put stuff out?
Definitely, and I guess that's a good way to put it. Like branding wise and stuff like that. Yeah, there's definitely a direction that I feel like, you know, I keep everything contained in. But again, that brand is only most successful when I'm just doing what is truly me.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So.
Anybody else have a question? Feel free to put your hand up, otherwise I'll just keep talking. You have a question? No? Okay. So, talking about releasing new music coming up, we didn't really sort of talk about a strategy. You just said that I've got it coming up. I'm gonna put these. You don't have it yet?
Oh.
No, but
yes and no.
But do you think about? So when you were talking to me earlier on about how you linked all your different social media accounts so that when you posted a piece of content on Instagram, you told everybody about it on Vine and Twitter or whatever. As you're getting ready to put music out, obviously people release music digitally. Sometimes people will still sell vinyl or CDs at shows or whatever, but essentially we live in a digital world where you put something out and you pick an arbitrary release date. It used to be that it had to be on a Monday, and then it was a Friday, and now you can just release it whatever day.
Yeah.
But you release it through somebody like TuneCore or Reverb Nation or somebody like that, and it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
So every digital store everywhere gets it at the same time. How are you gonna let people know about that? How do you let these? I mean, what's your social media following right now across all the platforms?
I've built about 4 million total.
Okay, so how do you let those 4 million people know that on Friday there's a new single going up on Spotify and everywhere else?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, social media is always evolving too. Like the new Instagram updates and stuff like this that they change the algorithm and stuff. So you kind of have to keep up with some of that stuff, in order to be able to capitalize on that type of thing. But
Can you explain that a little bit? What's the update and the algorithm? Does the algorithm, how does that work?
yeah, so originally on Instagram there was a popular page. Like if you got a certain amount of likes in a certain amount of time, you and whoever else met that goal would be featured on a popular page for all of Instagram to see.
Right. So if my 14-year-old daughter wanted to go and see what's popular today, if you've been building up a certain amount of likes, that you're going to be on that page, and that's going to make you even more popular.
Exactly. And the growth in that time was so much more than it is now, because now they have I forget what they call it even, the Explore page, I think, where they just put content out there to cater to what they think you're going to like.
Based on the things that you've been liking.
Exactly.
So that's all algorithm driven.
Right.
Where it's saying, oh, he's going to like this, she's going to like that, and all of a sudden this stuff pops up. How has that changed then?
Yeah, it's I'm to be honest, I'm still kind of figuring it out, and Instagram has, you can put out Instagram ads and stuff like that to actually cater to those people and hit your markets and stuff like that.
So you can buy advertising essentially.
Right. And that's a technique that I have used and will continue to use, but ultimately it's just like engaging my fans with quality, consistent content. And as I'm doing that, just kind of like letting them know, hey, we got music coming, or hey, music's coming on this date. So I kind of distract them with what I think they want to see, and then tell them what I want them to hear.
Got it. So is that a plan then to loosely put out a song every couple of months, or what? I mean, have you thought about how to release that material in the next year?
I am planning to release an EP around springtime, so 3 to 5 songs type of thing, and that's about as far as my planning.
It's as far ahead as you've thought.
Yeah, as my procrastinative mind has taken me, but yeah.
Well, and you're doing it all yourself as well. It's a
Right.
lot.
Yes, and also, I am exploring the resources that I have in order to hopefully be able to distribute the music and stuff like that. I don't want to plan to do it all on my own, but whatever I am doing, I want to have the creative control over, and that's kind of the difference.
Okay, that's really important to you, isn't it?
It is.
And I know it probably was at the beginning, but even more so now that you're sort of coming back with a new version of yourself, so to speak. Having control and not having anybody else telling you what you should be doing.
Exactly.
But it's a lot of work, as we said.
It's a lot of work, and it's as comforting as it is, it's equally as scary, because you are doing what only you feel like is going to work, which may not work. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like a different person today from the guy who was putting up Vines 6 years ago?
Yes and no. I'm a completely different person in the way that I have experiences under my belt that have shaped me to who I am, but I almost feel like it shaped me back into who I was in a way too, and refound that realness in myself that I've always had.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, we'll just keep talking, but we have a microphone here that we can throw around if somebody wants to ask Kenny a question.
Hello, my name is Robert. Question, you say you play the piano.
Yeah.
Do you compose your own music?
I do. I write all my own music. Every piece of music I've released, I have written, and I don't consider myself quite the production expert that I want to grow into. So whatever I produce, I don't feel confident enough to release it. I get people to finish the final product. But as far as the writing is concerned, yeah, I do it. I do it all.
You write your own. You write your own music.
Yep.
You do.
Yeah.
Do you take lessons as well?
For
Piano.
I stopped when I was 14, and about a year ago I started again. So I do currently, yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's classical, pop, jazz.
A little bit of everything. A little bit. I work with 2 teachers currently. One does classical, one does jazz and pop type stuff. So I'm just trying to always grow and expand, my craft.
And your teachers, are they composition? They teach you, they help you with your composition?
No, they do not. The first mentor that I had as a songwriter was a guy named Dan Parker when I was 16, kind of coming up in the scene like I was talking about earlier. And since then, I've just worked with different people and kind of realized different approaches and techniques to writing, which has shaped me into what I am as a writer today.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, man, thanks.
Do you have like an upcoming shows here in California or?
Yeah, you're going to be playing out?
Yeah.
I have a date. We talked about the movie in Utah, so my Utah fan base is extra strong. So I do have a date planned in Utah. Hopefully, I'll get out to Arizona, my hometown, and California. I usually do West Coast stuff, so keep an eye out. Nothing planned yet, but you guys got to come out when I do.
Okay, of
All
course.
right.
And lastly,
Yeah.
so are you single? Are you seeing someone? You have a girlfriend? No?
You know, that is quite the complicated question.
Oh, yeah.
And so I will defer to the answer of yes and no. You know? Always discovering in that way. Thank you.
So he's available, is what he's saying, for the right person. On the question of composing your own songs, do you compose other music? Do you have any plans to maybe move into writing music for film or television or anything like that? Is that on your agenda, or?
I would love it to be if like the right opportunity kind of came, especially in like the film space. I would love to do some film scoring at some point and get into that side of things. And I would even like to write for other people, but I find that to be hard. As you mentioned, I'm kind of like a control freak creatively for myself, and so
You pointed that out. I just sort of
reiterated,
reminded you.
Right,
yeah.
right. Thank you. And to like not only give some of my creativity to someone else, but to give them their creativity always kind of feels weird for me, you know, to work and collaborate with people on their style, you know.
So you mentioned obviously the balcony project where you were working with somebody else.
Yeah.
How did you divide the duties, the songwriting duties on that? Did you bring each of you bring material to the other, or did you actually sit down and write together and collaborate?
A little bit of both, and it was in that setting. It was real natural, like
Right.
it was just happening, you know.
And have you sat down and written with other people as well?
I have, yeah,
Right.
I have.
Is that a part of what you want to do as a songwriter? To I mean, you just mentioned it, I guess, to write songs that other people would record?
Yeah. Again, like I believe it is, and I'm open to it. But there's something psychologically for me with that whole creative process that is kind of you know, fragile territory. So you know, we'll see.
Do we have any other questions? One more. We got time for another one before we wrap it up, if anybody has a question. Okay. So let's just sort of draw this up. And you mentioned, obviously, that you've got songs that you want to release in the next year and that you want to perform as well. When you look at, it's the beginning of a new year.
Yeah.
When you look at 2019, what do you see in your immediate future? I know you're not looking too far ahead, but what apart from releasing some music and playing, what else are you going to get up to?
You know,
You're going to stay in Arizona?
I believe I'm going to stay in Arizona, and this is something I was explaining to you kind of behind the scenes, but where my initial goal was to be as successful and popular as possible as a musician.
As you said to me, you was like, I wanted to be famous.
Right, yeah.
All right. Well, you
yeah.
kind of got that.
I kind of got it. And
Didn't like it that
didn't
much.
necessarily like it that much.
So,
And so my main goal is to just to be myself and to be happy and be able to continue doing what I love and sustain my lifestyle. And if that brings a degree of fame that people can kind of connect with, I'll welcome it. But it's not my goal as much as it once was, oddly enough. So.
well, cool. It's been great talking with you.
Thanks, man. Likewise.
This is Kenny Holland. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks, JBL, too, and Harman.